Somebody asked the question about the disparity between the public's perception and expectations of inflation and the experts, right? Because the experts are saying that, oh, it's all transitory, nothing to worry about. But the public, and I'm not just talking about consumers, but businesses are expecting the price increases to continue. After all, why else would Federal Express be raising prices? Why would UPS be raising prices? If they were as confident as the Fed that all this was going to be over in a matter of months, they probably would be sticking it out. They wouldn't be raising prices. The reason they're doing it is because they know they are down in the trenches and they know that what we're seeing is not transitory. This is real, this is permanent, and it's going to get worse. And a lot of other companies who have held the line on price hikes, they're now throwing in the towel on that and they're raising prices because they're convinced that what we are experiencing is not just a transitory bump in the road. This is a whole new path that we're now traveling, and they're trying to prepare for it by raising prices. But consumers also, you look at these consumer expectation numbers, and consumers are expecting much higher rates of inflation, right? And so Powell's asked, what do you do with that? Do you just ignore the consumer, the public, because they don't know what they're doing and just pay attention to the experts? Well, the experts aren't paying attention to prices. The consumers are. I think in this case, the consumers are right to expect higher inflation. They're just wrong in that it's going to be even higher than what they expect. So they're still wrong, but they're not as wrong as the experts because they're going to miss the mark by an even wider range. But Powell basically said that, hey, they're just probably wrong, but he did admit that the Fed is watching these consumer expectation numbers, and if their expectation ever became a big problem, the Fed would react, which of course is another lie because they already are a big problem and the Fed is ignoring it. And in fact, the Fed claimed that the expectations that consumers have are only for slightly above trend. And in fact, earlier, he mentioned again, he said, well, no, in response to a question about higher inflation, he said, well, yes, we're above target, but not by a lot. He said, we're talking 1 or 2/10 above target. And he said, that's such a small number. And he doesn't understand why households would be at all concerned if inflation ended up being 1 or 2/10 higher than their 2% target, which if that were true, then yeah, consumers probably wouldn't really care if we were at 2.1 or 2.2. But the point of the matter is we're not just above target by 1 or 2/10. I mean, you're talking about triple their target rate, if not more. And consumers have a right to be concerned about a big increase in their cost of living. It's the Fed that is derelict in its duties in simply turning a blind eye to all this inflation and acting as if it's nothing. Now, again, why are they doing that? I think the only reason they're doing that is because they know the alternative is a financial crisis or a complete implosion of the economy. And so since they know they can't fight inflation, then they have to pretend that there's no inflation to fight. Otherwise, it's game over. They can't admit that, yes, we have a lot of inflation, but we can't do anything about it. They always have to pretend that if inflation ever became a problem, they would do something about it, even though it's a problem right now. And the fact that they're not doing anything about it, the only way out of that is to pretend that there's no problem. And that's why they're not doing anything about it. Because, of course, if it was a problem, we would do something. But since it's not, we don't have to. But we stand ready. Everybody is over-levered. It's not just corporations, it's households, it's governments, every sector and every government sector, from the federal government on down to the states and the municipalities. The entire country is one gigantic over-leveraged bubble. And the fuel that has inflated it, all that air has come from the Fed. And the Fed continues to blow air into those bubbles by continuing QE, by continuing to hold interest rates at zero. And all they do is pretend that at some point in the future, they're going to deflate this bubble without even acknowledging that it's a bubble, but the fact that they haven't taken any actual steps to do that, and the fact that they seemingly contradict themselves and they say things that even superficially are obviously not true. Yet nobody really picks apart the inconsistencies the way I do in their very statements. At some point, the markets are going to figure this out, understand the Fed's predicament, and then it's going to hit the fan. That's when you see the gold market explode. That's when you see the dollar market implode. But you can't wait. As I've said repeatedly on this podcast,